There are some looks you feel before you even see them. You know that strange feeling when your brain tells you someone is watching you, and somehow your heart already knows who it is. I felt it every day for almost 3 weeks. First I ignored it. Then I convinced myself I was imagining things. Then eventually I started noticing the exact moments it happened. I would be walking through campus, looking at my phone or pretending to care about whatever assignment was due that week, and suddenly I would feel it. That tiny shift in the air. That strange pull that made me look up. And every single time it was her. The problem was that she had a girlfriend. So naturally my brain kept asking a question I really didn't want to think about. Why was she looking at me? People always say that when someone likes you it's obvious. They're wrong. Because when feelings actually start becoming real, suddenly nothing feels obvious anymore. Every smile starts feeling like a clue. Every message becomes something you reread 10 times. Every accidental touch starts living in your head for longer than it should. And if that person already belongs to someone else, then every emotion suddenly comes with guilt attached to it. The whole thing started on a random Tuesday afternoon. Not during some dramatic movie moment. Not under rain or fairy lights or anything beautiful like that. Just a coffee shop near campus where students practically live during exam weeks. The place always smelled like coffee beans and vanilla, mixed with the sound of keyboards clicking and people pretending to study while secretly scrolling social media. I was sitting by the window with my headphones on, staring at a document I had been trying to finish for almost 2 hours. My assignment wasn't difficult. I just had absolutely no desire to do it. I had reached that stage where I spent more time changing fonts than actually writing anything. Then someone pulled out the chair across from me. I looked up, and for a second my brain completely stopped working. She had dark hair falling slightly over one side of her face, soft eyes, and this expression that looked like she was constantly thinking about something she never said out loud. She wasn't smiling at first. She was just looking at me. Actually looking at me. Then suddenly she smiled. "You're sitting at the only table near the outlet," she said. I stared at her. She raised one eyebrow. "I need to charge my laptop." Oh, amazing response. Truly impressive. I quickly moved my bag away from the chair. "Sorry." She laughed softly. "No, don't apologize. I was kidding." I don't know why I remembered that laugh later. Maybe because it sounded warm. Maybe because it felt comfortable. Or maybe because some tiny part of me already knew this wasn't going to be the last time I saw her. 3 days later I saw her again outside the library. And that was the moment everything became complicated. Because she wasn't alone. She was standing beside another girl. They were close together, laughing about something I couldn't hear. Then the other girl reached over and fixed a strand of hair near her face. And then they kissed. Not dramatically. Not like a movie scene. Just a small quick kiss before saying goodbye. And I remember feeling something in my chest drop. Not because I had some huge crush. Not yet. I barely knew her. But I remember thinking, oh, that was it. Just one word. Oh. Because suddenly that tiny excitement, I didn't even realize I had disappeared before I had time to understand it. I stood there for a second longer than I should have. People walked around me carrying books and coffee cups. Talking loudly, laughing. Living their own lives while my brain kept replaying a moment that should not have mattered. I barely knew this girl. I didn't know her favorite color, what music she listened to, whether she liked horror movies or hated mornings. I knew absolutely nothing about her. Yet somehow that tiny feeling of disappointment sat in my chest like it had a right to be there. I told myself to stop being ridiculous. Then I started walking. Unfortunately, life apparently decided I wasn't going to get off that easily. Because as I passed them, I looked up for 1 second. 1 stupid second. And she was already looking at me. Not accidentally. Not in that random way people look around when they're distracted. She was staring directly at me. Then she smiled. Again. And for some reason that felt even worse. Because suddenly my brain started asking questions I didn't want to answer. Did she remember me? Why was she smiling? Why did I suddenly care? I walked away without looking back. But the whole way home I kept replaying it. I kept telling myself I was overthinking things. People smiled at each other all the time. It wasn't a big deal. Maybe she was just friendly. Friendly. That word became my favorite lie. Over the next 2 weeks I started seeing her everywhere. First I thought it was coincidence. Then it started feeling suspicious. I'd walk into the coffee shop and she'd already be sitting there. I'd go to the library and somehow she'd appear 10 minutes later. I'd leave class and suddenly hear someone calling my name from behind me. The weirdest part was that I never remembered giving her my name. Hey! I turned around one afternoon and saw her jogging slightly to catch up with me. You're always wearing headphones. I stared at her. What? She pointed toward me. I've seen you like 6 times and you always have headphones on. I blinked. You've seen me 6 times. The second I said it, I wanted to throw myself into traffic. 'Cause wow. Subtle. Real subtle. She looked at me with a tiny smile forming at the corner of her mouth. You counted. No. That sounded like counting. I didn't count. You definitely counted. I looked away. She laughed. And there it was again. That stupid laugh. The one that somehow made me smile before I even realized I was smiling back. From that day things became weirdly easy between us. Not forced easy. Natural easy. The kind where conversations somehow kept happening even after they should have ended. We'd sit in coffee shops talking for hours without noticing time passing. We'd complain about classes and professors. We'd argue about movies. She thought sad endings made stories more realistic. I thought sad endings were emotional torture. She claimed pineapple on pizza wasn't terrible. I immediately questioned her judgment as a human being. Somewhere between those conversations we exchanged numbers. Then came memes. Random texts. Inside jokes. And suddenly I started doing something dangerous. I started expecting her messages. I wake up and check my phone. I'd leave class and look at notifications. I'd see her name appear and immediately smile before catching myself. Then I'd get annoyed at myself for smiling. Because every single time I started forgetting reality, I'd remember. She had a girlfriend. And reality would hit me all over again. So I started creating rules. Rule number 1. Don't think about her too much. Rule number 2. Don't read into anything. Rule number 3. Absolutely do not start liking her. Rule number 4. Stop acting like a complete idiot. The problem was that I was very bad at following my own rules. Especially after that Friday night. Because around 1 in the morning my phone buzzed beside me. I looked at the screen. Her name. I stared for a second, then opened it. Are you awake? No good thing in history has ever started with "Are you awake?" Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because if someone texts you at 1 in the morning, they're either about to confess something, tell you they're having an emotional crisis, or ruin your peace forever. I stared at the message for almost 30 seconds. Then typed back. Yeah. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Then disappeared again. I sat up in bed. Can I ask you something weird? I narrowed my eyes at my screen. Depends how weird. 3 dots again. Do you ever meet someone and feel like you've known them already? I froze. Actually froze. Because my heart suddenly started beating faster for absolutely no reason I wanted to admit. I stared at the message. Read it again. Then again. Because I knew exactly what she meant. Or at least I thought I did. And that terrified me. Because if I answered honestly, I knew I was walking into dangerous territory. But I answered anyway. Yeah. I waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 20. Then her reply finally appeared. Good. I stared at the screen. Good. That was it. Good. I sat there blinking at my phone like it had personally offended me. Because what kind of answer was that? What was I supposed to do with that information? Sleep? Absolutely not. I spent the next hour staring at my ceiling, while my brain decided to become my greatest enemy. Because one thought kept repeating over and over again. Maybe I wasn't imagining this after all. Then things got worse. Or better. Honestly, even now I still don't know which one it was. Because 2 days later, I finally met her girlfriend properly. I had seen her before from a distance, but this was different. I was sitting at our usual coffee shop table scrolling through my phone when I heard her voice. Hey! I looked up. She was standing there smiling, and beside her was the girl I'd seen outside the library weeks ago. For a second I felt my stomach sink. This is Emma, she said. Emma, this is. She smiled at me. The girl who keeps destroying my opinions in movie arguments. I laughed awkwardly. Emma smiled and sat down. And immediately I hated how nice she was. Because that would have made things easier. If she had been rude or cold or distant, maybe I could have told myself she wasn't right for her. Maybe I could have created some reason in my head to justify whatever feelings were growing inside me. But Emma was kind. Really kind. She laughed easily. She asked questions. She made me feel included even though she didn't have to. And while the three of us sat there talking, I noticed something. Emma kept looking at her. You know that look people have when they genuinely love someone? That quiet look. The one where they smile without realizing they're smiling. The one that says, asterisk, I like existing near you. Asterisk. Emma kept looking at her like that. So naturally I looked at her too. But she wasn't looking at Emma. She was looking at me. My heart stopped for half a second, then started beating way too fast. I looked away immediately. No, absolutely not. I refused to think about that. I refused. After that day I started pulling away. Shorter replies. Less texting. Less eye contact. Less everything. I told myself I was doing the right thing. Because I knew where this road ended. Someone always got hurt. And I wasn't about to become the reason somebody else's relationship fell apart. Days passed. Then almost a week. No coffee shop conversations. No random messages. No stupid memes. Nothing. I told myself I didn't care. Then I checked my phone every 10 minutes. So apparently I cared. A lot. Then on Thursday afternoon I heard someone call my name behind me. I turned around. And there she was. Except this time she wasn't smiling. She looked upset. Actually upset. You've been avoiding me. I blinked. What? You heard me. People walked around us while I just stood there staring at her. I've been busy. She crossed her arms. No. What do you mean no? I mean no. I stared at her. She stared back. You've been answering slower. Silence. You've stopped coming to the coffee shop. Silence. You barely look at me anymore. Every word felt like she had been keeping score. And for some reason that scared me. Because I didn't realize she'd noticed. I looked away. I've been dealing with things. She got quiet. Then she asked softly, did I do something wrong? And suddenly my chest tightened. Because I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to tell her I hated waiting for her texts. I wanted to tell her I hated that I noticed every little thing she did. I wanted to tell her I hated how happy I felt whenever she smiled at me. And more than anything, I wanted to tell her I hated that she already had someone. But instead I looked away and said, no. Just one word. No. She stared at me for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. Okay. And she walked away. That should have been the end. Honestly, maybe it should have been. But later that night my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Her name. For some reason my heart immediately started racing. I opened the message. Asterisk, can we talk? Asterisk. 20 minutes later I found myself sitting beside her outside campus near the empty football field. The night air was cold. Neither of us said anything at first. She kept looking down at her hands. Then finally she spoke. You know what the weird part is? I looked at her. She laughed quietly, but it sounded nervous. When I first met you, I thought you seemed familiar. I stayed quiet. I kept trying to figure out why. She looked up at me. And then I realized it wasn't because I knew you. My heartbeat started getting louder. It was because you felt familiar. I stared at her. For a second I couldn't speak. She looked away toward the empty field. I know how that sounds. Silence. I know I have a girlfriend. Silence. And I know I shouldn't be saying any of this. My chest tightened. Because suddenly I already knew where this was going. And I wasn't sure whether I wanted to hear it or run from it. Then she looked back at me. Directly at me. I don't know when it happened, she whispered. But I started looking for you. Everything inside me stopped. I'd walk into places hoping you'd be there. She laughed weakly. I'd check if you texted me. My heart felt like it forgot how to beat normally. And I kept asking myself why. She looked down again. Then finally she said it. And I think I know now. Silence. Complete silence. The kind where the whole world suddenly feels far away. Then she looked back at me and smiled sadly. I like you. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. Because for weeks I'd imagined hearing those words. But reality felt completely different. Because this wasn't simple. This wasn't two people falling for each other at the right time. This was messy, complicated, and real. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled a little. Not because things suddenly became perfect. Not because everything made sense. But because after weeks of asking myself one question, I finally had my answer. She had a girlfriend. So why was she looking at me? Because she couldn't stop. Some people enter your life quietly and somehow change everything without warning. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and stay for the next one.